Okay, I'm good.
All right, great. Well, please start off with just what's the significance? These services are relatively new in Nevada, at least as far as the state's concerned. What's the significance of making sure that there is, as functional as possible? Why is this an important subject?
Well, one reason is because they have every right as a human being to be able to be independent, to live a fulfilling life as the rest of us do. And the other part, which may be more attractive to some people, is how much it will save the state. If they get early intervention, the earlier they get intervention, the more likely it is for them to function independently as adults and not need any services as adults. In fact, 47% of kids who get intensive early intervention never need any services as adults. And the biggest cost to the state is the adult services because it lasts their whole life. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, 90% of kids without treatment need a lifetime of support. So it will save the state a lot of money. In fact, the average, what has been calculated is those low functioning persons it will cost the state up to $6 million for one person if they need a lifetime of services.
Wow. And what's your interest in this area? How did you get involved in this area? Why are you introducing bills and being involved?
Well, I graduated with a degree in special education, and before I had ever really heard of autism was teaching children with special education, so that's my first love anyway, is helping these kids. And then I noticed a growing number of kids with autism. Then I had a nephew born after I was already involved in this with autism, so I became intrigued by it and then began teaching kids with only autism.
Do you encounter skepticism in the legislature and in government when it comes to these programs? People saying, they don't think that autism is as serious as it's made out to be. They don't understand it. What's that?
Not at all. In fact, there's bipartisan support for this. I think there's, because the fact is last session, the statistics were 1 in 150 kids were being born with autism. This session, the Centers for Disease Control says it's 1 in 110. And the American Pediatrics say it's 1 in 91. So there's a growing rate. So I think not only because of compassion by the legislature, everyone knows someone who has a child with autism. It's also the money issues. We're going to be taking care of these children for their lives if we don't follow the evidence-based practices which show that these kids will function normally if we give them early treatment.
Governor Sandoval has been very explicit that, the state has only so much money to spend and he doesn't think they should spend more than what it has. How do you feel about that as it relates to this? Do you find that to be restrictive in any way, or do you feel that, you can do something to help and still hold that promise on taxes?
Well, I think he's talked about eliminating one of the departments that give services, but maintaining the other. And in fact, the one that we're trying to maintain, and we're trying to move the caseload from the one being eliminated to the one being maintained, because that's the one we feel is providing the better services anyway. It's already using evidence-based practices. It's giving parents information at early stages so that they can get the help they need. It's using evidence-based data systems and assessments. So it's a matter of we're just moving the money around, not asking for more money.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to autism and special education for kids, what kind of choices is the legislature facing when it comes to funding, and what are those choices like? Are they difficult choices being made?
I think that every choice we're making right now is a difficult choice, and we have to look at the bigger picture. And like I said, looking at the long-term effects on this state in supporting persons with autism who don't get treatment. Mm-hmm. So we do have to find a balance. Yes, there's no question that every decision we're making right now is difficult.
And you have two bills. One is to consolidate or to accommodate this shift in services from one department to the other, correct?
Yes. One is to make there one path for autism services, which would be under the Aging and Disabilities Department. Mm-hmm. And the other one is to provide consistent data keeping and assessments, and that's throughout the state, whether it be in schools, in departments, so that we can take consistent data and know how many children we actually have with autism or how many adults we have with autism, because we're only serving in these agencies about a little over 200, yet our statistics are saying we have 6,000. And we want to make sure that we just have consistency across the board so that we know what we're testing.
And how would you characterize just the level of service that the state of Nevada provides for people, families that are dealing with this? How would you characterize it today? How would you describe it?
I would say it's improving, but it needs a lot of improvement. That's why we're putting forth these bills to offer consistency, better outcomes, better data. Part of the data we're trying to put into one of my bills is to show that our treatment options are working. So not only do we want assessments to show where they need to start, what kinds of treatments they need, but data at the end and ongoing data to show that it's actually working, or do we need to make adjustments in their treatment. So we are trying to make improvements, but definitely there's areas that are doing very well and areas that are not. And so we're trying to find consistency to make sure the whole state is using these evidence-based practices.
And by being involved in this issue, do you get a lot of calls from constituents, calls from residents, people, what's the kind of the demand out there?
I would say it's mostly from those who experience it firsthand, is where I'm hearing it from.
And what kind of stories do you hear? What are people dealing with?
Well, there's, it hasn't gotten underway as much this session as last session. We talked about the insurance, and there were so many just needing help. And I think the insurance bill we passed last time has really helped families that can't afford it, because treatment's very expensive. And I've heard success stories and stories of those who couldn't get treatment. So we hear both things.
And what do you tell the people who can't get treatment, especially in this time when there just isn't money to be adding more and more people to programs?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can only give them what we have to give them, but let them know we're working on making sure everyone gets this treatment. All kids born with autism should have the right to this treatment.
And do you envision a day when that's going to occur in Nevada?
Definitely. I think if we keep working toward it, there's going to be a way that we have funding, whether it be through insurance, because the state doesn't take kids who already have the funding through insurance or through Medicaid, I believe it is. So we're the third option, and so we want to make sure there's as many options as possible for them to get the funding help they need, assistance, because most of the assistance the parent has to pay a portion, but we try to supplement that.
And just one more thing, and I should have done this at the beginning, and that is if you could just state your name and your title, your name, and spell it for us, please.
Okay, I'm Assemblywoman Melissa Woodbury, and I represent District 23 in Henderson, Nevada. And you want me to spell my name?
Yes, please.
MELISSAWOODBURY.
And you're a Republican?
Yes.
And your district covers like Boulder City?
It does not go out to Boulder City. It's East Henderson from about Wagon Wheel down to Sam Boyd Stadium, which I still call the Silver Bowl. So I have to think about what it's called.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. I think that will do it.
Okay.